So I'm super thrilled now to have Jim Mann here with me. He's a badass when it comes to what we can do for the preservation of the landscapes and also for climate. I think he find a very good way, very easy way for all of us to understand that some simple actions can make bigger changes. And first of all, let me introduce the man that is behind the trees notice that you probably has been seeing in some of the races when you are signing up. So, hi Jim, how are you doing?
Hi, Killian. I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the very kind introduction.
No, it's a pleasure, and actually, I want to go a bit back to your background. I know that you studied ecology in the university, and then you are also an athlete. Like you have been doing some big races and big roads. So, what do you think is the connection between being an athlete and also like the passion for ecology?
So, well, I guess the ecology was always something that interested me. So studying ecology made sense. But I also, from quite a young age, was fell racing in the UK. So from a teenager, and when you're out in nature like that, I think you learn, and I'm sure you've got similar experiences. You learn to respect nature because things can change quickly in that environment. But you also learn to appreciate it and really like the environment that you spend time in. So little things really wind me up. Litter on the trails, for example. I'm one of these people who comes out with more than he brings home, more than he sort of takes out on the trail. I'll pick up litter as I'm going and things like that. But yeah, just that time in nature really makes you appreciate it, I think, as much as anything.
Yeah, and I believe that probably this connection between nature and fair running and the love of sport it's what came on the building the trees notice. I don't know if all the folks here you know what it is. It's an easy way like saying okay, instead of like having t-shirts given when you are entering a race or when you are finishing a race to use that money to plant a tree. So instead of like having a t-shirt, you are planting a tree. And I believe that that's a very cool thing because it not only takes away like the production of one t-shirt that we all know that will probably not be used for practicing, but it will be lost in some place in the house or in the car. And instead of like you are planting a tree that will help to produce oxygen and to build an ecosystem. So how did it came the idea of that?
Yeah, so I'd transitioned into trying to reforest the landscape. So looking at parts of the UK, we've got quite degraded landscapes, and I was trying to get trees planted. So I was already on that path, and at the same time trail running, mountains, getting all these t-shirts. I've got a drawer full of t-shirts. I still have a drawer full of t-shirts, and I've sent boxes of them to rerun because every race I was going to, I was getting given a t-shirt. Now, I'd actually stopped collecting those, so I was saying to race organisers, I don't want it anymore. But they're like, oh, we've already produced it for you. It's like, well, I'm still going to refuse it just to make the point that you should be giving us an option. But it took me a while to connect the two, and I think it was Dan Lawson at Rerun Clothing that I'm a huge fan of, who are trying to sort of extend the life of running kit, who was always on about race t-shirts, and it just made me think if there was a way we could stop the race t-shirts before they're produced and to use that to plant a tree to make people feel good, then and do something actually good as well, then that was a much better use of your whatever it is, £2.50, £3 that a race organizer is already committed your entry fee towards. You know, it's already in your entry fee. They're already spending that for you. So if we could divert that to something good and stop all these t-shirts which are heavily polluting, and we only see part of the pollution, part of that waste as it goes into landfill. At source, the rivers that are polluted through the dyeing process, the water that's consumed in making these t-shirts that we never wear is absolutely shocking, and it's all exported beyond what we can see in most cases.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like to do like in a very simple action for the runner that is just to click a button instead of in the registering process to have two good actions like removing like pollution and at the same time like planting a tree. And I know that you have been um, we have been talking some other times about why it's important to the reforestation, and it has to be done on a certain way. It's not like just to plant trees, but it needs to be done on yeah with a sense, so it makes a bigger impact for the not only for the capture of CO2 and the oxygen, but also for the ecosystems.
Yeah, and this is something that I think is all too often overlooked. We focus a lot on CO2 and not enough on biodiversity. And in actual fact, trees are one of the rare things that can actually tackle both. So we can put trees in the ground, and if we do it in the right way, we create habitat for wildlife. And when we think of wildlife, often we look at the large, fluffy, furry things that are cute to watch. But in actual fact, we need to come down that ecosystem and look at it from the ground up. So looking at the fungi, the bacteria, the insects, and creating habitat for those. So when we're planting trees, we've got foresters in the team who are experts on this. I've got an ecology background, but I'm not fully up to speed. I read lots of things, but I wouldn't claim to be a practicing ecologist by any stretch. But we take that advice on board, and we plant a mixed species and a diverse species, and we also plant to resist or to be resilient against climate change, because we're already looking at 1.25 degrees locked in. So that's where we currently sit today, and we need to plant trees that can survive at 2 degrees of change. And we're also planting in places where the trees will remain, where we've got very, very low risk of forest fire. You've been to Scotland, and I'm sure you're familiar with the amount of rain we get up on the west coast of Scotland. It's really not sort of tinder dry forest conditions even in the middle of summer. A drought is sort of a couple of days without rain up here. So we're pretty resistant to fire, but also the heat stress that trees can suffer means we're planting some species that would be north of their natural range, so that we know that forest is resilient into the long term.
Yeah, that's something. It made me think like it's many times when you want to do like a carbon compensation, like you look online and it's like hundreds of places where you can do compensations, and they are some that they are cheaper, some that they are more expensive, and probably the reasons are a bit there. Like when it comes to reforestation, probably it's not the same like to plant a mixed forest in a place where these trees will be treated and they will survive, and to make a plantation in some place that it will be desertic and monocultivation where they will probably disappear. So the effect can be strong at short term but not at long term. So should that be something that we look when we are looking for compensations, like carbon compensations? What's the source of this capture of CO2?
Definitely, and particularly with the two that concern me, particularly are soil carbon and tree carbon, because both of those are easy to reverse with management changes. So a chainsaw could reverse all of our carbon very, very quickly in our forests, but so could a natural disaster like a forest fire. There's one of the forest fires running through the Pacific Northwest at the moment is destroying actually as we speak, it's burning a carbon sink. There are 20% of a big carbon project is on fire currently. All that carbon will have been released, and that's not been planted in the wrong place. That's a pretty safe, would generally be viewed as a pretty safe place to plant. There are schemes that are in sub-Saharan Africa, and they're planting non-native trees like eucalyptus, and there's a 1 in 30 year chance of that forest burning, and yet they're selling 100 years of carbon. I mean, that sort of stuff makes me really, really cross, because it's not a real offset. It's a scam basically, and the problem with that is it discredits everything that the genuine companies or people or individuals or charities are trying to do to tackle this problem, and it's going to keep happening. And so really, that moves the onus onto us as individuals when we're choosing our offsets to make sure we know where we're putting that offset when we're trying to do something good. Is it actually going to have a positive impact long term?
Yes, you mentioned like probably it's a market that is growing a lot. Climate, I would say it's more people that is aware. I think it's important. It's very cool that people is aware about what's the science behind climate change and biodiversity laws and all that. But we need to understand that with that it's also a market that is growing, and like every market, it's things that they are done better and things that they are done worse. So we need to do our research before, when we try to do compensations or when we try to invest on solutions that they are fighting on climate change. And I know that you are not only planting trees. You are not only planting trees. You try to go the full length on that. So can you tell us what are the other solutions that you are implementing in these landscapes that you are using?
Yeah, there's two other things that we're doing. So one is a product called Biochar, and this is taking forest waste. So when somebody clear fells an area of forest, and clear felling isn't necessarily the best practice, but timber is really important to us if we're going to decarbonise, because using timber in building materials displaces concrete, and concrete can displace concrete, and concrete is far more carbon intensive than timber. So I'm not against timber harvesting and using timber for replacing other things. But none of our forests are cut. But what we do is go to forests that have been cut, and we take away what's left over, so the side branches that are left and the tops of the trees, and we process that into a charcoal type material. And the reason we do that is the wood that's left on the forest floor would rot down over the next 10, 15 years, releasing all the carbon dioxide and methane back into the atmosphere and creating more heat and more energy in our system, which is ultimately what climate change is doing. So we process that into biochar, which is a product that can then be spread on the ground and stores that carbon for 1,000 years. Basically, it's buying us time for decarbonising the rest of our activities. The other product that we use is a process called enhanced weathering. And actually, this is the one that I'm most excited about. And we're just starting to scale it up now. But we take a certain type of rock, and it's quite an abundant rock that you can get all over the world. And we grind it up into a fine powder. And this is replacing a natural rock weathering cycle. So rock weathering removes depending on the estimate, between 10 and 500 million metric tons of CO2 from our atmosphere every year. And the process is that as water falls through the atmosphere, it absorbs CO2, forms a weak acid that reacts with the rock and chemically stores the CO2 as carbonates. That will store the CO2 for anywhere between 100,000 years at a minimum and 200 million years at the other extreme. So this is absolute permanent removal of CO2. And so we're now scaling this up. We're probably the leading company in the world to be making this happen. Working with the likes of Stripe, card processing company over in the US, who are helping to fund the research we're doing there, but also we're starting to now scale that up. And I think this has huge potential for removing CO2 cost effectively and relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's such a solution that we don't think often about. We think often about like how forests are like the lungs of the earth, but I was a long time ago, or like a few years ago, I read this study that big mountain ranges like Himalayas were like big lungs also for the planet, because exactly the rock cycle and how like rocks breaking can like capture CO2 and deposit for so much longer than other solutions, and to take that and make it happening, not accelerating that. It's such a brilliant idea, and it's good that you are combining all the three different things to add. So it's not only I think that's the best, like to take all the knowledge that we have on how we can fight climate change and try to find the best places to do it, and that's a brilliant job that you are doing there. And to finish, I would like to ask you, like, you are an ecologist, you have this company, the Future Forest Company, and the Trees No Teas, fighting for climate change and biodiversity, and you are an athlete too. So, for me as an athlete, what are the best things I can do to fight climate change or to preserve the landscapes and the biodiversity?
So look at your carbon footprint. Understand your carbon footprint. Flying will be one of the worst things that we can do, and I know you've reduced your flying dramatically. So have I. And the other area. So transportation, your home heating, and diet. And when we talk about diet, it can be quite a polarizing topic. Eating local is largely the key. What can you source locally? What can you source seasonally? Heating your home, it really, that's quite a difficult one, because it's expensive to retrofit homes and to improve the way we heat homes. But things like heat pumps can make a massive difference. The coefficient of heating there can improve the efficiency of your heating threefold. And transport, we all know that flying less, using transport that's running anyway, so things like trains, great way to travel. Obviously, pandemic makes that somewhat more difficult at the moment, and electrify everything. From your car to where we can put solar panels. We've got to stop burning that oil and gas and everything that is a natural carbon store. We've just got to stop putting that into the atmosphere. The quicker we can reduce those things, the better. So everybody can do that. Oh, and equipment. I should say equipment, shouldn't I? The shiny new stuff. Just because it's got a new colour on the shoes, don't buy them. If you've got tread left, wear it out.
Yeah, that's the best point. Like, use your gear. Like, it's not to be in the house. It's made to be used, and to be used for long until it's destroyed, and then you can repair it. So that's a good point. Yeah, so thank you very much, Jim. It's been a pleasure, and it's always so inspiring to see all the work you are doing, and for the folks, like, just check out the Future Forest Company and learn about these amazing different ways to fight climate change and to fight, like, the biodiversity loss, and it's something that all of us can help.
Brilliant. Thanks, Killian. Thanks for having me on.